mentioned the key important attributes, and then the other three speakers will delve a little bit more into the details. Let me also mention that today is more like an introduction. Tomorrow, as part of that participatory process, most of us here present will be expected, because we are going away with documents and we'll be going away with some inputs today, will be expected to make our own input into the document and into the process. So this is a part of that participatory process, and you're going to be going away with some. You already have the packages, you already have the seed process, so tomorrow we'll expect to come in and be part of that process. The most important attribute of the development process is the vision, because the vision sets the pace for whatever is happening. And I think we have been lucky in Kwara State, and again we are lucky to have worked with an executive that has a true vision for Kwara State. So it was even a little bit easier, because in some places you have to work hard to even articulate a vision for Kwara State. But Kwara State already has a vision, so our work was simpler. And the vision for Kwara State, from all we have been seeing, is to be the most progressive, the most prosperous and progressive state in Nigeria. Now, progressive, I will underline progressive even more than prosperous, because from everything that is happening in Kwara State, from the openness to external ideas, that truly shows that once you start on a progressive journey, ultimately you become prosperous. So progressive is the most important attribute. And who's going to grow, what's going to make Kwara State progressive? It is the private sector, which we are listening, which is going to form the engine of growth. Kwara State will be driven by entrepreneurs. Kwara State will be driven by corporations, which may not necessarily be the case today. But that is part of the vision. A productive farm sector. Kwara State hopes and will be one of the most productive states in Nigeria in terms of agriculture. And we do know that easily more than 70% of our population derives their income and livelihood from agriculture. All of these will translate into high employment. And most importantly, education and health, water, sanitation, the basic needs of everybody in Kwara State will aspire to be met. And so, Kwara State, at the end of the day, will be a state, given all of these, that will be a state in a state of harmony. And all of this will be made possible by a government and an executive that is open and transparent, with an eye for the future. I already talked about the objectives, but just to articulate them: providing an enabled environment for attracting local and foreign investment. Now, why is this important? Because without investment, you cannot grow the private sector, and that is absolutely key. Now, we probably need to look a little bit back to even the needs document and the policies of the federal government. It is absolutely important, and which is even right from the federal level, attracting foreign investment. Attracting investments, whether local or foreign, is absolutely key. You cannot grow the economy without investing, without capital. It is capital that will bring in machinery. It is capital that will bring in expertise. It is capital that will bring in the technology, the inputs, the agricultural inputs, whatever you look at. It is capital. And without attracting this capital, we cannot make any progress. So one of the key cardinal objectives is the attraction of foreign and local capital. And I believe that Kwara State is already making enormous successes and strides in this direction. Boosting agricultural production. Now, when the other speakers come, they will talk about the targets that all of this, we're going to start in all of this. Because the other thing that we're doing is, unlike in the past, when we manage by making promises, the government, by this document, is making a promise based on targets, and that is that in so many years' time, we will have improved agricultural production by so much, and everybody here present, the whole state, because all of this will be published, will have this document to be able to adjudge. 3 years ago, we said we are going to move by this percentage. What have we been achieved? So this is a declaration of intent. Human development, health, education, reforms. Education is one of the key ingredients for development. Health is one of the most critical ingredients for development. These are going to form the critical plans on which the human development agenda for all these can only be made by a disciplined fiscal management. Whatever resource that the state is out to and get out free, tight fiscal discipline, prudent management, good governance, the executive arm, the bureaucracy will be working in tandem to ensure that all the objectives and all the goals that are set are met. Now those are the key for developing seeds is so robust that even after the life of this administration, the life of this executive government, the momentum will have been generated that it generates a life of its own. And that is why right deliberate. This process is made to ensure that there is a solid foundation, and at the end of the day, the output will be a document that can live in perpetuity. And what are the elements of this process? The most important thing is good for Kwara State. What is good for you? Society level, of private sector, government sector, over the months that this process was going on, the consultations were held. The next critical ingredients was what we call the manufacturing industry, the private sector, governance. What are the objectives? What do we need to do? What are the targets we need to do to be able to achieve this vision that we have set out for ourselves? And that is those targets that will be discussed in detail, presented today and tomorrow. Again, let me mention that these things are not cast in concrete, they are not yet final, because that is part of this process. If you look at anything, any sector, you believe that this target is not good enough, or that is too, or that is overstated, that is the process where we're here. And that is everybody should be able to say at the end of the day, this is what we want to achieve for Kwara State. And then, what are the strategies? How do we achieve these objectives? What are the things we need to do? Who do we need to bring in? What is the amount of money required? How do we fund this? All of those strategies were now put into place to be able to, at the end of the determine where we're going to achieve that. And we also had, like I said, we also had consultants from the UNDP who again came in and conducted some workshops as part of the consultation process to be able to come up with this report document. Now, after all of this, what have we been able to develop? Now, we have had several drafts. I can't recall how many drafts of the documents that we have been able to that we have come up with, and that underlines the consultative nature of the process. The drafts you have today is probably draft number 4 or number 5 or number 6. After this, there's going to be another draft, and then before a final document. And even after that final document, because the former economic advisor who actually initiated this whole process says it is a work in progress. Today, we don't have a final needs document. It's still within that process because development is a dynamic process. And so, even after today, the process of development continues because there's no end to it. But at least we have a working document. We have a basic document that we can say, yes, this represents the total yearnings and aspirations of all of us. For focus and clarity, Now, three basic things have been developed. The Human Development Agenda, which talks about education, health, sanitation, and water. Now, those are because at the end of the day, whatever we do, progress is measured by human development. And today, when we talk about development, we talk about the human development index. Whether you produce your total industrial capacity production is so much. If at the end of the day your human development index is low, you are still an underdeveloped nation. So whatever we do, we're talking about human development. So everything we're doing in private sector is to transform the development status of Kwara State. And we have some overall objectives in terms of reduction in poverty level and increment in income, which targets you will see in the details of the sector. Growing the private sector and of course improving the governance. Those are the three things, and those are the three sectors that all of us or most of us will be looking at it tomorrow. And I believe there's already a working program, and now we have been put into one group or the other. So tomorrow, and if you feel that you want to work in any other group, you're free to move to that particular sector. And this summit will mark the final phase of the development process, and that is getting the key input from our distinguished audience here today. This process is, clearly shown in just this chart, which we talked about the vision, the key objectives, the goals and the strategies, looking at the human development agenda, growing the private sector, improving governance, the strategies to be able to implement this, the financial requirements, and more importantly, implementation and monitoring, which at the end of the day is the responsibility of the executive, because that is why the executive is there to make sure that whatever it is that we said we're going to do, given the dynamic nature of society, on a day-to-day basis, taking into account all the political factors, the socio-economic factors, that no matter what happens, even if the oil price crashes to whatever level, that they will devise new strategies to be able to make sure that ultimately we get to where we want to go. In conclusion, I will say the SEED document, not necessarily a new document, because everything that we have done is really articulating most of what has been happening, getting the input and feedback, but putting it in a clear and concise manner that it will be a document of prosperity, because it will have the signature of the government, the people, and the signature in perpetuity, underlining and defining the path to prosperity for Kwara State. And for this plan, who at the end of the day also are key to this process. So we'll look forward to your total participation. Today is a brief of the flavor. Tomorrow the actual work will start. I wish I would say it's actually a historic process for Kwara State, and to wish Kwara State success not only in today's work, but ultimate success in achieving the vision that we're here to set for Kwara State. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jude Atwell of Restaurant Consult. Thank you very much. Economic Summit would presuppose that so many things must work together harmoniously. And it reminds me of a cliche which you might beg your pardon, I formed. I said, small deeds done are better than great acts planned. Small deeds done are better than great acts planned. And in what way are we contributing our little quota to the development of our immediate surroundings and our state and our country? It's all right to sit in a place and point to the leader. It's all right to think it's only the commissioner that is in charge. It's all right for you to say it's only the governor. Do you know that these people cannot do much if we do not help them? Incidentally, a governor who is altruistic in motive only needs the cooperation and support of the people to move the state forward. And this is what I ask us to do. Because all too obviously, Governor Bukala has put roads in place. You bear witness to the fact that roads have been rehabilitated and are being rehabilitated by the day. And without roads, what are we talking about? Agriculture. And talk about agriculture. You know that the Zimbabwean farmers are here to do magic and to do wonder and to take us to great heights of food sufficiency and of course water. I happen to know that even in the hamlets, in the villages, water is being provided either by borehole or something. Not only is UNICEF doing its bit, Kwara State Water Resources, Ministry of Water Resources, is doing its own. And then, of course, the people are being reorientated. Our psyche is being changed. And if all of these will be in place, then you would know that this summit and so many other plans that have been put in place or contrived by the present government can only put us at the forefront of the state of the nation. Kwara State, as it's called, is the state of harmony. If there are any visitors here, and I imagine there are lots and lots of them, you could almost leave your car. Okay, are you going to guard your street the way you guard it in Lagos State, or even in Oyo State? Anyway, you know that Kwara State is now a much more harmonious state. You may want to know happily that the Honorable Minister is beautiful. Thank you very much. You're welcome. You're welcome. And you do know that if anybody is going to accuse somebody of being late, it will not be the Honorable Minister. Only God knows how many chores and schedules he has had to put away, but it's quite fashionable, I dare say. Thank you very much. It is on that note we're going. I'm now going to invite the Honorable Speaker for the House of Assembly here, Alhaji Ibrahim, to come and invite our governor to come and make his speech.
Listen to the Honorable Speaker introducing myself. I think honestly we must give praise to the Almighty God. Because I know that if that had been a few years back, I don't think the Honorable Speaker would be able to introduce the former governor in that way and still be sitting where he's sitting now to bless us in this great state.
Amen.
Kwara State is 37 years old. At 37, it was long overdue to ask ourselves where we are, where are we going, and how do we intend to get where we're going. We give glory to God that we're all gathered here today. We have chosen today to ask ourselves those questions and find answers to them in a way that no other people before us have done before. When we took over governance of this state in 2003, two major challenges recommended themselves to us. One was to restore the peace that was badly eroded by the wave of sponsored violence that pervaded the state shortly before our arrival. The other was to open the state for productive investment that will create jobs, reduce poverty, and set the stage for defined economic growth. while we have recorded significant achievements on both counts, and partly in response to the national reforms and development agenda, we also have realized that we must translate these challenges into long-term vision for overall development in our state. In doing this, we have outlined a series of integrated strategies that are focused on key reforms in governance, sought to rebuild physical and social infrastructure with direct impact on human development, particularly in education and health. And lastly, and more importantly, to try to create an enabling environment for economic activities by individuals and groups in civil society and the private sector. All these we have tried to codify into an agenda for development, which contains measurable targets and processes in the core sectors and the resource portfolio that is required to realize these set goals. This is the state economic empowerment and development strategies, otherwise known as SEEDS for Kwara State. In fashioning the SEEDS for Kwara State, we have gone through a long process of learning and consultation that have produced 2 summits on education and health in 2003 last year, and have engaged experts both nationally and internationally, and have drawn deeply from the voices and preferences of ordinary people and groups in the civil society and communities. This economic summit is not only intended to climax this process of consultation and mobilization, but also to underscore the significance of ownership and partnership in pursuing the agenda for development in our state. While, as we have seen, it is so closely aligned with the United Nations Millennium Development Goals for people by the world in the year 2015. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have not shied away from declaring that ours is a resource-challenged state, with the civil service employing about 70% of our people in formal employment. We have over the years maintained an expenditure profile that is neither productive nor sustainable by deploying up to 65% of our budget on recurrent alone, salaries and other general administrative spending. It is clear, therefore, we must achieve development, whether in terms of reducing poverty, improving human development standards, or creating the right environment and structures for investment. We must begin to break new grounds, explore new opportunities, and create innovative and dynamic standards and strategies. In pursuing this, we are conscious of our geographical location, which provides direct access to markets both in the north and south of the country, our border relationship with 5 states, and an international border relationship with the Republic of Benin. These are the opportunities that we have not yet tapped on. We are also aware of our huge mineral deposits, which have remained untapped over the years, and perhaps most significantly, we are aware of our rich agricultural land and climate, which have been found suitable for almost all kinds of crops. Therefore, while mindful of our weaknesses, we have sought to harness and strengthen our comparative advantages, especially in agriculture and agro-allied investment, while pursuing policies that will revive and nurture the industrial sector. In this direction, we have recorded a number of successes. The flour mill plant brought in by the Dangote Group is one of these. Apart from the knock-on effect this industry will have on the local college business and trading, it will also provide a significant outlet for our cassava producers, particularly when federal government implements policy next year on the introduction of cassava in this sector. The reactivation of the Yamco is another area of success that provides another ready market for our cassava growers. Just like the cashew nut processing factory that is built to take off in the first quarter of 2005. Our divestment from the Kwara furniture manufacturing company has attracted direct investment that holds enormous promises in employment, revenue, and market. This is a company that was moribund prior to our administration. I'm glad to inform this gathering that the investors in this company are concluding arrangements to make Kwara State the base for manufacturing high-quality furniture targeted in West Africa and the Middle East. Perhaps our boldest move so far in enterprise development is in the area of agriculture, represented predominantly by the Zimbabwe Farmers Initiative. Of all our projects and programs, this is the one that has attracted the most attention, including some critical voices. While we must note some of the fears that have been expressed, it is my desire that more thoughts are given to the principles and contents of this project and the logical outcome of the processes involved. No sector holds so much promise for so many of our people, but has remained underdeveloped and unproductive for years like the agricultural sector. Majority of our people anywhere in this country are employed in this sector. Our bare existence through obsolete farming processes, weak institutional and infrastructural support base, wasteful and non-profitable market environments, among others. While government over the years have talked about developing the non-oil economy, especially agriculture, and have committed billions of naira, including donor funds as well, there has been little or no changes. Perhaps the mind-boggling wastefulness of the public spending in agriculture can only be rivaled by what can be commonly called tragedy of modern Nigeria. The billions of naira spent in importing food from other countries of the world, despite our enormous resources in agricultural lands and water, can almost support any of these high conducive climates that we have. The figures for 2002 show that Nigeria spent over 120 million in importation of milk and over 250 million in importation of sugar and close to another 600 in importation of rice. Like I said earlier, if our state must break out of this vicious circle of poverty and underdevelopment, it has to be locked over years. We must seek our strength and our best advantages. And no other sector recommends itself so obviously like agriculture. In pursuing an agricultural development policy that will have the right economic and social impact, we have to turn to environments where successful commercial agriculture is not only an ideal or isolated cases, but a reality that has sustained economic lives and livelihood. This is the genesis of our engagement with the Zimbabwe farmers. One of the earliest interpretations of the phenomenal economic growth in East Asian countries was that it was the market that did it. However, every authoritative sources has come to show that behind what was shown as the market forces were the active and deliberate hands of government directing investment in certain sectors regarded as productive, providing the right incentives for investors willing to go into sectors regarded as more volatile and risky, for which the government considered as strategically important to its economic growth. Midwifing such investments were necessary and even supervising or overseeing the operations of some core businesses. We must agree that the investment environment in Nigeria today is hardly better than what it was in some of those countries that have achieved some measures of success today. Our business environment is not only regarded as highly volatile and insecure. Investors coming in are only interested in the quick win areas like oil and gas and maybe now telecommunication. This is why it is necessary that government intervention becomes inevitable. To steer investments into high-risk sectors like agriculture, government not only need to provide incentives and some measure of covers, but it must also be prepared to provide the necessary infrastructure. You must have read that the commercial agriculture project by the state will be financed through private debt and equity financing, with counterpart state funding through interest-free loan and guarantee for bank loan. Some of the justification for this support has become necessary, but most significantly, I need to point out that much of these funds are going into infrastructures that should be ordinarily be available and taken for granted by any investor. And perhaps if they were available, we will not require the kind of commitment that is built around this project. But unfortunately, they do not exist, and government has to provide them. However, in this case, government is not only providing gratis, but they are coming as a loan package that will ensure that the cost of providing these infrastructures will be recovered over a period of time. This brings me to an important issue I've always talked about when I have the opportunity to speak before donor agencies or people who can influence the policies of these agencies. If we want states, especially poor states like ours, to achieve development, donor agencies must be prepared to invest in what is described as the non-sexy areas of development. They must be willing to invest in infrastructure development, water, roads, and electricity. These will not only encourage business and investment, but also free state resources into social sectors that are directly critical to human development, especially health and education. For the avoidance of doubt, it's important to point out that although the 2015 target Millennium Development Goals seem far away, but most states will not even come near achieving these targets, whether it is the issue of extreme poverty, maternal and child health care, basic primary education, HIV/AIDS, or even malaria, if they have to invest the bulk of their resources in providing capital-intensive infrastructure. At this junction, I would wish once again to restate my appeal to the federal government through the Honorable Minister of Finance to kindly assist and redeem the pledge on the Chikanda-Kosoboso Road. This is the road linking the state with the Republic of Benin. Although this road is a federal government road, we consider it of high economic importance in linking our state to strategic markets on the other side of the border and the various farming centers. We must meanwhile thank the federal government for agreeing to partner with us on this. I trust that the Honorable Minister will give us the necessary support in ensuring that this project makes it through 2005 federal budget. Another important significant area that I would like to seek the federal government support is in Kwara furniture. Like I've earlier said, the products of this company will be targeted primarily at the international market. This means they must be of top quality, which cannot be supported by the materials and fabrics available locally. Therefore, request the federal government to consider to include these items under the manufacturing bond scheme, as is done for other sectors, to enable the company to source high-quality materials for export. Similarly, already we are speaking today to the largest cargo company in Africa that was formerly based in Lagos, but due to some of the frustrations, had to move their location to Lome in Togo, and now are considering to come back to Nigeria to be based in Ilorin. However, the federal government needs to support the project by removing some of our bureaucracy that currently entails cargo clearing and ensure that they create a more efficient customs service and other policies that encourage business in this sector. As we shall see in the course of this summit, we have gone through a painstaking process involving clear and bottom-up strategies in our core developmental sectors of health and education. Rising from Economic Education Summit in 2003 and Health Summit a few months ago, we have sought to depart from the blind spending that have driven these sectors in the past and have evolved measurable targets which have been encapsulated in the 6 documents that we're presenting today. Going through these processes have been rigorous and have been involved those from the UNDP and defeat, but it has been a worthwhile and wonderful experience. However, I think the greater challenges will come in the form of access to data and funding of the projects and programs in seeds in the years ahead. Again, this is where the states have to be supported. Policy planning and implementation have been bedeviled by the lamentable lack of access to data and capacities to collect, analyze, and use it. Whether it is data on severe poverty, maternal or infant health care, farmer census, purchasing power, etc. Unfortunately, this problem is not only limited to the states alone. It is the same at the federal level, as my dear friend, the Minister of Finance, has severely lamented. Because of lack of baseline data, it has been difficult, if not impossible, to track the changes and progress brought about by the various reforms and policies and programs of the federal government. For example, the conventional wisdom is that there is no money or there has been lack of money in Nigeria over the last few years. But at the same time, we must all accept that we have witnessed a huge amount. For example, we've seen the capitalization going on recently in the banks where individuals have done capitalization close to 120 billion naira. We have seen that today in Nigeria, we are seeing the fastest growing GSM market in the world. All this we ask ourselves, where this money is coming from. But unfortunately, my dear sister, Honorable Minister of Finance, without those data, cannot show to us that there is progress. But surely from these statistics, something good definitely must be going on in this country today. It is therefore extremely important that we prioritize data collection and analysis at all levels of government, so that we will not only plan more deliberately, but also be able to measure impact and make the desired progress in both needs and seeds over the next few years. At this junction, permit me to restate something else that I have said repeatedly at different forums. I think one of the reasons the huge amount of money that comes into this country as development support has not been matched with development on the ground is that the donors tend to spread themselves too thin by wanting to cover the whole country or simply select states based on geopolitical spread without regards to priorities in respective states or even demonstrable commitment by respective states. Therefore, I think it's about time that donors begin to adopt selective generosity, that is, by developing parameters and criteria that states must meet before they're entitled to donor support. This will not only encourage healthy competition among the states, but also improve the overall workings of governments across the country. Your Royal Highnesses, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Kwara State has existed for 37 years. It is better for history to blame us for underperforming for 37 years than for prosperity to condemn us for us groping in the dark forever. Now, we have the opportunity yet to seize history with both hands and turn it in a different direction, so that our children will look back many years from now and say, yes, they wasted some time, but they charted the road that has brought us here. Therefore, this is the time for every Kwaran to stand up and be counted on this historic journey. May the Almighty God give us the will and the way we will achieve. Thank you.
Well. What more can we say? Can we have another resounding round of applause for our governor? Thank you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and your Royal Highnesses. Please sit down. Thank you so much. If you thought a governor was making a speech, yes, you were right. If you thought it was an administrative man, why would men always dominate? For God's sake, men. What are we going to do about this, Honorable Minister? You know, women and men are very pursued. There's this liberation, and it's leaving you better off. But then what can we do when we say it's a man's world? When you say fruits, you're talking of mango. When you're talking of houses, you're talking of mansion. When you're talking of even taking care of yourself, we're talking of manicure. Oh boy. When we're talking of politics, we're talking of mandate. Where are the women? Women day. Okay. I have great pleasure in announcing the arrival. They've been in here, but we're just acknowledging the presence of juggernauts from the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, and no less an institution than the National Assembly. And so, from the House of Reps of the National Assembly, I want to welcome Honorable Makonjo Lagbenga. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much. Honorable Meimunat Adaji Ikubulozi, you're welcome. And then Honorable Dikin Taye Opaleke, you're welcome, sir. It is my honor to invite the Deputy Governor of Kwara State, Chief Joel Ogundeji, to please invite the Honorable Minister for her speech. Can we please get a mic to them? Thank you.
Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Kwara State, the Deputy Governor of Oyo State, former governors of Kwara State, the Speaker of Kwara State House of Assembly, our father, and all the other traditional rulers, ladies and gentlemen, I think I have the singular singer I don't want women to accuse me of being concerned about men. So forgive me, I think men is still dominating this assembly. Most of us have been seeing her on the pages of paper. Few of us must have met her. I personally have had the opportunity of holding meeting with her, with Mr. President. And I know she's a woman of quality, a woman that is sound, a woman that knows her subject. And I'm sure we are not going to be disappointed this afternoon. I have the greatest honor to welcome the Honorable Minister of State, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Mrs. Ngozi Wela. You are welcome.
When I walked into the room, I just felt so much energy. You know, I just come off the plane this morning, as was said, after visiting 3 countries at the instance of Mr. President, and I was flying here and saying, I hope I can keep awake. You know how it is when you're on that plane coming back. You can't sleep very well. And I said, well, if they hear somebody snoring, they know that it's me. So when I walked into the room, the sheer amount of energy that I could feel had woken me up. So I want to say how happy I am to be here, to bring greetings from the members of the economic team. I'm sorry, I had hoped that 1 or 2 of them could also be here with me, but they are otherwise taken in other duties. I'm particularly happy to be here to participate with His Excellency the Governor, because we've known each other, I think, since 2000. And we've worked quite closely together, and he has been very supportive of the things that we have been doing at the federal level. I want to tell you that he's a governor you can be proud of. He's not perfect, I'm not perfect, we make mistakes, but when you see someone really trying to do something differently, you have to give them credit. What I'd like to do here today is to seize this opportunity to share with you the challenges we face at the federal level, and the progress that we have made, such as it is, and then to try to link that to the aspirations and the concrete requests that we heard from His Excellency the Governor in terms of what you're looking at or looking for in Kwara, and how we can partner together to make sure that not only this country but the individual states, and particularly this state, benefits from some of the programs that we are pursuing. So let me do that. I'm going to use high-tech to do it, or low-tech actually. These days, PowerPoint is nothing. But just to be able to illustrate to you quickly some of the things that we're doing. Yes, if you don't mind, I'd like to move around. Let me first start by so I just wanted to start by saying that at the time that the President came in, these were some of the challenges that could be identified in terms of what is facing the country. I don't know if you can turn that round so that people at the high table, can you see it? Okay. We've tried to portray this in a kind of pictorial fashion, but decline, which we'll show you very soon. High poverty levels, which we've talked about. Can you see it? Yes. So, low investor confidence. It also add that encapsulated in that is huge infrastructure decay. I don't know how many people know that many of our power plants, including Serbin, there has been no investment to rehabilitate or put them right for the past almost 20 years. And that is why we experience some of the problems we experience. Many of our roads were not kept up in terms of maintenance. So these are some of the things that had happened over the years. And you know that if you have had 2 decades, 20 years to dig this kind of hole, it takes a little bit of time to try and dig yourself out of it. So next. This is just to quickly illustrate some of those challenges. You can see there that from the 1980s, which is that tall green chart, our per capita income has declined drastically. From $800 in 1980s, had come down to about 300. You can see that it's been more or less stagnant. The same thing with our productivity has been going down. That's that graph. The productivity, total factor productivity of our land, labor, and capital has been declining. And you know that if that is happening, there is no way you can get good economic growth in the country. As a result of all this, when you talk about private sector, we want to invite the private sector to be the engine of growth. And that's the way it should be. Because as the governor said, of course the state has to come in to provide some of what is needed. But really, state investment and government investment, so those are the 6 factors that they cited that make for a hostile environment. Next. We talked about this, I mentioned weak public sector institutions, the lack of transparency and accountability at all levels, and even the pattern of our revenues. And the other one, the purple one, shows the pattern of our revenues, and the pink one, the pattern of our expenditures. This illustrates one of the most serious problems we've had in this country. We've had a pattern of spending all our money when we get high oil prices because of the dependence on oil, and crashing down to very low levels of expenditure. Even sometimes we can't pay salaries when the oil price falls. And with that kind of zigzag pattern of expenditure and revenue and expenditure, you have a zigzag pattern of GDP growth, which I have not put on here, but if you were to see it, it's the same. No country can develop without pattern of growth. You also know it. If you're managing your own household finances, and when you have a windfall, let's say they tell you won lottery somewhere, or you know, you get a new job and they increase your salary by 30%, you immediately spend all of it without saving anything. And then the next time, you know, God forbid, you have a problem and you're laid off, then you crash, you start looking for where to borrow from your neighbor because you didn't save a little when you had money. Or you spent it all on, you know, a big party or, traveling somewhere, then you crash down. That is the sort of pattern. And you know that your household and your family will not be happy and will not develop with that pattern because children won't be able to go to school. So a similar analogy that we've had. This is one of the biggest problems we face, and that is why we've taken some measures or proposed some measures to solve it. As a big debt burden, we borrowed quite heavily in the 1980s when oil prices were high and everybody was wanting to lend us money abroad. And then over time we were not able to service that well because oil prices fell and the burden just mounted. And a lot of this borrowing was done by various states. And then, the federal government, of course, was the guarantor. So when we couldn't pay, the whole thing burden fell on all of us. And now we owe about $34 billion. Developed countries that get together to decide how they are going to treat countries that owe them money. And they have certain rules and regulations that we have to follow, unfortunately. But because of this debt burden, the federal government assumes 75% of the responsibility for servicing the debt, but states assume about 25%, and that is why you see some deductions in the money that the states get to contribute to the payment of the debt. The graph on the state debt, can you go back? Do you have that? Okay. We had a graph that showed the indebtedness or what is deducted each month for the various states, and hopefully before the end of the day we'll be able to look at that. Next. So the issue is, those are the challenges that we face, along with the lack of infrastructure and all the other things that we all know about. So how well did we set about trying to address this when the president said try to come up with a plan that can help us to make a headway on this? And we came up with this National Economic Empowerment and Development Strategy, which has as a central objective creating wealth, reducing poverty, generating employment, because we are very concerned about our youth who are not able to get a job even after graduating from university. And then changing our values. This is very important. We don't talk about it often enough. But some of the things that are holding us back as a country is the fact that our traditional values have gone down. We are not what we used to be. These days, if somebody comes back to the village with a very big Mercedes Benz, instead of people saying, how did you get this? What job were you doing? The next thing is they start praising the person. And then the person becomes the chief person in the town and throwing money around, and nobody says, how did you come about it? That is part of the erosion of values. And as long as we don't change, people will continue to be corrupt in this country. Because if you got that car by taking government money, or you got it by robbing somebody on the way, then there's no reason why anybody should celebrate with you. No, I'll tell you a little story about this. In my village, my husband's village in Abia, there was somebody who everybody knew he didn't go to school. And he left the village for about a year. They didn't see him. And then came back. Actually, I got to know because I was visiting from the US, and they said, that there's a very nice house, bungalow, that somebody is building for their mother. So I said, since we were trying to build a house for ourselves, I said to my father-in-law, let's go and take a look and see what this young man is doing. And then he said he wasn't going. So I said, what? He said he wasn't going. So I said, okay. He didn't tell me why. I went to the house and I looked at the house for myself and thought, this is very nice. They said he had built it in 3 months. And they were going to be having a party in the next 2 weeks to celebrate. So when I got to him, I said, what's the matter? I was trying to say, okay, these people who are working in this house have done a good job. I had proposed in the church a Thanksgiving service to thank God for all the good blessings that have been showered on them. And my father-in-law, being the reverend gentleman of the Methodist, the reverend minister of the Methodist Church, an old-style person, who is retired, refused to join. He was the only dissenting voice when the mother came to say that they should have a little party and they would do Thanksgiving in the church. And he said no, that we don't want that kind of Thanksgiving because we don't know where the money came from. As a result of that dissent, actually the villagers thought about it and said, well, you know, if you want to give thanks, that's okay, but we're not going to turn it into a big thing in the church. And that was a signal that they knew that something was not right with this young man. And that was also the reason why he refused to accompany me to the house. I'm sorry I took time to tell this story, but the issue is that nobody asks questions anymore. And I want us all to think about it, because for the future, we need to ask our children, where did you get this?
Yes.
Where are you going? What are you doing? So that is the issue of value orientation. Now the key pillars of our national empowerment strategy is that we want to look at the role of government and say, is government doing the right thing? Is it involved in businesses it shouldn't be? Like producing things when it doesn't have the capacity. We've all seen how we struggle with NEPA, NITEL, and all these companies. Or should it be doing something else, like creating the type of environment within which the private sector can work? So these are some of the key pillars that we want to create that environment for the private sector. We want the government to do what it should do, because it does have a strong role. You can't leave it all to the market. I agree with His Excellency the Governor on that. But what is the right thing for the government to do? Shouldn't it focus on education, on health, on building roads, on water, leaving things like producing actual goods as much as possible to private industry? So those are some of the things, and creating a new value system. The wonderful thing I just saw is that your seeds, which the governor spoke about, very much mirrors these objectives and values. And I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the His Excellency and the entire people of Kwara for this very important document. Now, some of the focus of the reforms. What are we doing? The first thing, very quickly, is we want to improve economic management. This is important, because if we don't manage your finances properly, there won't be money to invest in the first place. And that's what I want people to know. People are asking, well, we haven't seen any action on the ground. Actually, there's some. But I agree with you that Nigerians have waited patiently for a long time for their government to do this. So that is why, when I hear that, I don't get too upset, because as a Nigerian, I know where we are coming from. But the first point, if you're going to invest in roads, in water, and so on, is to make sure that the money you have is managed in such a way that it goes to the right places. And so we focus on public expenditure management and public revenue reform. That is not only managing what we have, but trying to increase the pie outside of the oil sector by trying to reform our taxes, our customs, and all these are beginning, to happen. In the budget itself, we have done many things that I think are new and that are helping us to make sure that money goes to the right place. I think I'll just mention one. One of my favorite ones is the phenomenon of AIE, no cash backing, which I said I only heard in my whole life in Nigeria. Never heard it anywhere else. And I've worked internationally for 21 years. So when I came here, I found this phenomenon. That AIE, no cash backing, means that in managing the budget, if you get approval for expenditure, the money could actually be disbursed, depending on who comes first. And then you might get did get a situation where priorities didn't get money and non-priorities did, because the people were able to access the approval first. You know what I mean? So if you're building a road, then you come, there's no cash backing, and there's tremendous frustration. So we said that thing must stop, and Mr. President was behind us every inch of the way, because he found that also that system was not yielding what was needed. So we reformed the finances so that we could release capital every quarter, and let it be there. And then, if you are able to produce your due process certificate saying that you've done your contract in the right way, then you would access that money. And many people say, but this due process has slowed things down and it's causing a lot of trouble. I beg to disagree. Because some ministries, you see, were able to access their money with no problem. We have a table showing those who have been able to access their capital quickly. Because they followed the requirements line by line and worked well with the due process. But anyway, we've done quite a few reforms there. We've also tried to foster stability so that the exchange rate doesn't fluctuate as much as it was fluctuating. We've built up some reserves, and inflation, which is high and is still a very big challenge for us, at 19%, is beginning to come down on a month-to-month basis. In June, it was 14, the average is 19%. June was 14.1, July 10.9, August declined back up because of the increase in oil prices to 13, and September is 9%, 9.1. We haven't got the October numbers yet because there's a bit of a lag, but it looks like something interesting is happening with that inflation, and by God's grace, we'll be able to deal with it. We've also done some focus on governance and accountability through the procurement reforms I talked about, and we saved about $1 billion there. We've tried to be transparent. There's an initiative called the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, where we are auditing our oil accounts. And by God's grace, June next year, we should have the first audit, real audit of 2001 to 2003, showing how many barrels of oil did we export? Really? What did we earn from it? And how was it accounted for all Nigerians and everybody to know? We've also we're working on other rule of law initiatives. We have a huge challenge with the police. A lot of reform needs to be done there, and I'm not sure we've embarked on that, but customs, we are trying to do something there to reform them. On the police, we are trying to equip them better, to make sure they are paid on time, to increase the number from 120,000 to about 320,000 now. To equip them, we are not completely there yet. But at the same time, I think we need a lot of reform in there. And then quickly, we are doing public sector restructuring, trying to focus the government on what it should do well and to make it more efficient and responsive. We're trying to privatize enterprises. 29 have been done so far, but we have a big challenge. We hope that this coming year, both Niger and the ports will be concessions. And of course, focusing on building physical and social infrastructure. Let me just say one thing next. On progress. Well, go to the next one. I think part of the progress that we should not forget about, even though we're having hiccups here and there with our democracy and our parties and so on, we should not forget that this is not was a hard won thing, and we shouldn't make light on it. But what progress have we made? I've talked of some of it. Managing our resources well, we've kept our spending more or less in line with our revenues by keeping our deficit low. In fact, now we have the surplus thanks to some of the oil money that has come in. And let me say that there, we instituted a rule where we're saving some of the excess food, and I know that His Excellency may have something to say about this. So far this year, we would have saved a total of $5.2 billion above the budgeted price of $25 a barrel. That is the extra. And the plan is that next year, 50% of that will go into investments, mostly in power and in roads. A little bit in health and education, but mostly power and roads to concentrate it. And some will go to pensions, because we've reformed our pension system. But that system of trying to save, I think, is very good. The other 50% we are going to keep, or we are proposing to keep, because when that price comes crashing down, let us not go back to where we used to be, and that's the whole purpose. Next. I think you'll see that on the exchange rate, it hasn't been as volatile. Our reserves have climbed to 16 billion, and our growth rate, we are targeting 5% non-oil sector. We are really hoping to increase the diversification, and I think we are going to get it. Next. Let's go next. I think not very helpful. I'll say it now so that if you see in the papers that something is happening. For example, in my ministry, we have 5 pilot ministries who are restructuring. Only 13% of the staff are graduates in the Ministry of Finance. Now, how can you manage the country's finances with that kind of structure? Shouldn't we have the reverse? Where people managing the finances of the country are qualified people, but 13% only are graduates. So we have to change that, and that is why we need to restructure to reverse this kind of, upside down pyramid that we have. And we need to train people. Doesn't mean that everybody not qualified has to go. Some of them need to be trained and professionalized. And that is what we need when we are doing civil service reform. Now let me get, what is the point of doing all of this reform we are talking about? It's because we want to translate it into actual things on the ground. And it's translating into infrastructure development, for example. Now, what we have done is we asked the Minister of Works to give us performance indicators by which he would be judged. I too have given my own, and we have them all up on the website of the Ministry of Finance. Now, he told us which roads he's going to repair, by when, and we have the list. One of them is, of course, the Lorry Ibadan, where I know that only 13% of the work has been done so far. And the rest, but we have released money for it, and we hope that next year considerable progress will be made. And we've heard the plea that we should work together on the border road, so it's not falling on deaf ears. I will certainly talk to my colleagues about the other thing is agriculture. We want to see this manifest in faster agricultural growth, and that has been working. This is one sector that has been successful, growing at 7% per year, thanks to a lot of initiatives that Mr. President has launched. And of course, the other things in terms of employment and empowerment. Quickly to the next one. Now, what does this mean for Kwara State? How does this impact you? I think that the biggest thing we need to see in terms of Kwara State and the other states is how can we partner? How can we work together to do that? And as I told you, we're already working together. Who can make good use of some of the wonderful resources you have here? I tell you, I have not seen such beautiful, when you talk of solid minerals, I've not seen the ones in Kwara, but I visited Bauchi State, and some of the most beautiful granite in the whole world is here in this Nigeria. And in the US where I used to live, granite is so expensive that I wish, how can we get this thing out there, because it will fetch us so much money. Similarly, you have that granite, tantalite, and so on. And so there's potential for us to partner together to try and bring investors. We have managed to get one investor into FCT and Nasarawa State for tantalite exploration. A Nigerian in the diaspora has brought in $20 million, which we have seen with that. I say with my 4 eyes. So it's not the one that he says I will. He has actually brought it in. That entered the country for that, and that is the kind of thing we want to partner with His Excellency and with all of you to try and bring that kind of investment. The same thing in agriculture. You heard the initiative on the seed farmers, as they are called. I mean, controversial or not, I think that we should not shy away from trying some things. And of course, hopefully, when they live here, they will see that Nigerians are some of the most wonderful and friendly people, if you know how to approach them. They will also know how to approach you. And with that, I think that they can bring a lot of benefits. We are trying to work together with international organizations. His Excellency has asked, with the World Bank, the IFC can also look into this to benefit not only them, but the small farmers that are in the surrounding area. Because you have a lot of potential here. We are also looking, of course, in the agriculture area, all the types of crops. There is a cassava initiative, but all the crops that are put up there are more. I think that this state can do very well. And manufacturing. He mentioned Kwara furniture. I think he'll tell you that I was quite excited when he brought that project. Because not only will it manufacture for here, but it will export. And we want to encourage exports. So some of the things he's looking for, he was asking me, how can we make this work? And we try to come up with some suggestions to do that. And finally, we are collaborating on reforms. We know the reforms on fiscal responsibility bill, you would have seen that the government chaired the session because he believes in this. that if we manage our finances in an open and clean manner, more open manner than we have done, we're not asking for perfection, but at least so that Nigerians know what comes to them, like you see us publishing each month. And I think the governor mentioned that you've also been publishing. We want states to be publishing. What do they get? How is it used? This bill will enable us to do that. So I hope when it comes, all of you will support it, and don't be deceived by those who say it's not a good thing. It will be a good thing for all of us. And we also have some other does not have what it takes. And of course, you have some tourism. It's a beautiful state. And a clean one. I was very impressed coming into Ilorin. Congratulate you on that. Then lastly, I just want to share with you, those who say that nothing is working, please go to the last page. Sorry you can't see this, but what we try to do on this last page is give you specific examples to show Nigerians that people are responding to these reforms. Look, these are just some of the investments that have come in recently. $86 million for an independent power project in my own state, Abia State. Very interesting project, doesn't involve NEPA. These people have come in, a Nigerian in the diaspora, Professor Nash, has gathered a group of Nigerian and American investors. They will build the power plant, their own transmission line, connect it to a group of industries that are ready to pay. And that is without getting on the NEPA grid. We're trying to encourage more of that, because that is a faster way for us to get power. I mentioned the 20 million in solid mineral. There's another one too. A young couple in the US decided to mortgage their house. They built a factory in near Oka to manufacture antiretroviral drugs for HIV/AIDS patients. They invested $500 million by selling, mortgaging their house and borrowing. That shows that they have faith that this country is going somewhere. The South Africans are they're putting $1 billion within the next 3 years. You see the Protea hotels. They are also investing in oil and gas. All this is bringing money. There's a 20 million dairy plant in Otta that are from the UK. Then there's another retail shopping center, the first of many, that is going to be built with Actis, the former Commonwealth Development Corporation, has put in $32 million. This is being built in Lagos right now. There's a $12 million factory in Kano. Italian has invested in leather. And my favorite one, let me just jump to that, the last one, Zechem Pharmaceuticals USA, is putting in $9.5 billion to manufacture a sickle cell drug developed by Nigerians. It is wonderful. We have the patent, and all of these people are coming in with this money. So when people tell you nothing is happening here, don't believe them. There's a lot happening, and jobs are being created. I didn't even want to mention telecom, where we are getting $1 billion of investment a year. Because people say telecom, they always like that. So I was careful not to put it there. And to show you that there are many other industries that are being. And then the donors are coming in also. The World Bank is committed quite a few resources, and the governor had a message for the donors. We are working with them to try to see what they can also do in Kwara State that can be of direct benefit. So I want to end it there and to say that we look forward to a very good partnership with the state, to working with all of you, and that we are very hopeful for the future. Thank you.
Yes.
If I ask us to please put our hands together for the Honorable Minister for Finance, I'm sure it's not too much. Thank you very much, man. Thank you so very much. All of these things that are just falling over one another, so much is happening. Well, thank God for all the information. I must say that congratulations to Your Excellency, the Governor of Kwara State, because I have been proved right. Perhaps before the Kwara State, no thieves, I said, virtually no thieves. So if somebody lost his or her telephone now, you say, number Kwara, I use that one. A handset has been found. I know the name, I know some more things about it. If you have lost something, You're going to tell us why you lost it, what kind of a thing is it, but it's a handset, telephone set. Please see me, otherwise I'll give it to my small daughter who's always been worrying me for once. The Honorable Minister, thank you very much for such a witty discourse. I didn't know you could be witty with all the finances in your head and the problem of Nigeria. That was a very witty submission. Thank you very much for it. And thank you also for the modeling role, because when we begin to ask our people, where are you going, where are you coming from, what are you doing, I saw the Royal Excellencies nodding in agreement then, because it is the kind of virtue they want to preach. And I want to tell all of you, Chief Protocol and all of you, that there's a new one. When you say Your Royal Highnesses, also say that Your Royal Mothers. Okay, so I had told you that there's a change in the program. We are not having a vote of thanks, we're not having a national anthem, we are not having lunch yet. We're going straight on to the second session so that we'll take it quickly. And you will know that number 3 in that second session indeed has been taken. Is His Excellency, the Governor of Kwara State, Governor Abubakar Bukola Saraki, who will still be where he is seated. And so we'll just be where we are, so as to cause little disruption. May I at this point please advise that we all turn off our handsets. There have been too many distractions with all the beautiful sing-songs and tones that each of them has. The SSG to please come and invite His Excellency and moderate this session.
Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor, all other protocols duly observed. Now we are transiting gradually into the main session, and we crave indulgence of at least all the participants to stay around, because this is going to be the most important session we are starting off. And we don't want to miss this list, because by tomorrow when we go into plenary session, whatever we do here will reflect on what we are going to get tomorrow. And I have the honor and privilege, especially after all those beautiful address by His Excellency, the beautiful presentation by the Honorable Minister, those one have set the tone for us. I will now have the honor to invite His Excellency to the next presentation on growing the private sector. Your Excellency, sir.
I was on behalf of the people of Kwara State, once again thank the Honorable Minister of Finance for not only making the effort of being here, but also giving us such an informative delivery on some of the positions and efforts. But I think because of the change of program, I want to let the speakers and facilitators the change of time duration to 10 minutes each on the 3-4 sectors that the presentation improving governance, and of course more importantly is to also be on put about financial requirements and the implementation strategies. Thank you.
I've already given you quite a number of statistics on Kwara State, but one that I want to highlight is that 50% of the population of this state are young boys and girls under the age of 18. I want you to remember that. So we have a large youth population. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my presentation is going to be in 8 minutes, and the remaining 2 minutes, I have the permission of His Royal Highness, the Emir of Ilorin, to give you a small test so that I can see those of you who are awake and who have been listening attentively. On this side, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi, she's going to be the invigilator on this side. And on the other side, I'll call my brother, Professor Oba, to be the invigilator on that side. Only women are exempt from this test. Only women are exempt from this test. So please, I want your attention and I crave your indulgence in the next 7 minutes while we are running through this presentation. Because tomorrow we are going to go into the plenaries, into the sessions, where we are going to deal with the nitty-gritty of growing the private sector in Kwara State. So distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I will take you through, give you all the salient points that will agriculture and agri-processing, industry, small and medium enterprises, as well as economic infrastructure, that is roads, rural electrification. Thanks. By introduction, we have 3 key objectives of the Kwara Seeds program. 1, to increase agricultural productivity, through development of small and medium scale farming and agricultural processing. Production right now is very low, so the need is for us to increase. Number 2, to attract private inward investment in industry and commerce. And number 3, to improve economic infrastructure. Now, success will be measured by increased agricultural output, value add, and increase the target, which I'm sure will be met because of the introduction of the Zimbabwe farmers. I mean, that is a target that I'm sure that we can meet. Then improving access to credit for both large and small scale farmers. We also develop interlinked model of smallholder and commercial agriculture for improved livelihoods of our people. Extending commercial farming practices, and then of course the next one is where the bankers come in, providing banking financing for investment in agricultural processing. Now we go to industry, and the challenge, is to make this state the hub of industrial development, where we can have so many small and medium enterprises. Right now we have only 21 small and medium enterprises in Kwara State. If you just go to Oregon, in Ikeja, that are just on that sector, in the Oregon Industrial District, there are over 100 companies there, but the entire Kwara State, we only have about 21. 12 are privately owned, 6 are publicly owned, and 5 of these ones are moribund and have been privatized. So there is a need for us, to use the industry, the small and medium scale enterprises, as the engine of growth. If you look at the economy of France, for instance, they have over 2.5 million small and medium scale enterprises. This is the type of volume that should agitate our minds, and then we can begin, to look into it. By the time the SEEDS program is fully articulated, I'm sure we are going to have thousands of businessmen and women, coming up in Kwara State. And I also think that this is a good opportunity to make this clarion call again to Kwarans, that they should please come home and develop the state. This is a challenge that I always have the opportunity to throw to you anytime stakeholders of this nature are meeting. No amount is too small. You only need to start, and then you leave the rest to God, to put his stamp on it, and you will see the results. Next slide, please. Now, what are the problems? The problems that the average small-scale industrialist faces. We are talking about electricity supply.